Hello everyone, today's video is going to be a continuation of last week's. However, if you did not see that video, but you have been to Cedar Point, then you should be good, you'll understand this video. I discovered a lot of things while researching that video, specifically related to changes in Cedar Point's loose article policy. I worked at Cedar Point from the summers of 2021 to 2023, so I have a pretty good understanding of how things work at Cedar Point. I feel like these changes prove the point of that video, that the parks are annoyingly inconsistent with their policies, but are trying to improve them. At least, I think. So let's get started. I learned that Magnum has on-ride pouches now. Why? I thought we learned that on-ride pouches slow down operations, and Magnum of all rides needs quick dispatches. For those who don't know, Magnum was built in 1989, and it was a different time back then. Cedar Point was known for getting as many people on a ride as possible. So when Magnum was built, it ran 3 trains, which is pretty normal for Cedar Point. However, if things take too long in the station, then the ride will back up to where the last train will stop on a brake run that was not meant to be routinely stopped on. The brake run is very short, leading to a very forceful stop. This is called a C-set, and it is borderline dangerous for riders. So, the ride has to keep moving, and keep dispatch times low to avoid stopping on this brake run. It's the reason Magnum does not have any bins. So why would they add zipper pouches? Maybe it's a sign that Magnum will not be running 3 trains anymore. That way it's impossible to C-set. In my experience in recent years, Magnum has only been running 2 trains most of the time, even when the line is long. The pouches could have something to do with guests losing their phones during the ride, big revelation, I know. However, Magnum has a lot of airtime, and it just comes out of nowhere. And that airtime steals phones, even if they're in pockets. With the ride being located literally above the water park, I wonder if the phones became a hazard to the guests below. But if that was true, then why are you not required to put your phone in the pouch? The rationale behind these pouches does not make sense to me. Alright, let's move over to Raptor, who has added lockers outside of the ride's entrance and removed the bins off of the platform. No bags are allowed in line anymore. However, there is no metal detectors either. It's kind of like Valraven and Gatekeeper, where there is still small bins on the platform that are just for shoes. The reactions to the removal of the bins have been quite polarized. Some guests praise that Raptor should now have faster operations. However, others see this as a cash grab from the park, and I don't really blame them. I think if Cedar Point had offered these lockers for free while you are riding the attraction, then a lot more guests would be accepting of this change. So, why are the lockers not free? I do not know for sure, but the company that offers the lockers has this revenue sharing plan. With this plan, the locker company will install and maintain the lockers for free, as long as the park shares the revenue made from the lockers. So is that what's going on? I don't know for sure, but I wouldn't be surprised. From an employee side of things, this is going to make their job both easier and harder. It'll be nice that guests will just walk through the gates and take a seat. However, for the poor person stuck at entrance, well, let's just take a look.
Oh, I'm so excited for this first ride of the day. Raptor's my favorite.
Excuse me, ma'am, your backpack has to go into a locker.
Oh, what, this little thing? I brought it on last year. I put it in the bins.
I don't know what the policies were last year. This is my first year working this ride. You can leave it with a non-rider or put it in the locker over there.
The lockers are free. Right?
They are $3 for 2 hours.
Ugh, this park is not what it used to be.
Have a Cedar fantastic day. The only thing I can't figure out is why. Why would they change this? Maybe it's because, like I said, Cedar Point was known for their fast dispatches, and they're trying to return to that. But then why did they add the zipper pouches to Magnum that slow down operations? Maybe the park is trying to standardize their loose article policy from ride to ride. This way, guests would know what rides do and do not have bins, which would just be every ride does not have a bin. In that case, rides like Maverick and Gemini might lose their bins soon. I know it's still for safety, because you can still bring your wallet and keys and phone on the ride, so it doesn't have anything to do with that incident last year at Banshee. Out of all the theories, I can't figure out a specific reason why they would do this. If this video hasn't been nerdy enough for you, it's about to go to 11. Let's discuss the locker Cedar Point does offer for free. Before that though, I need to give some context. Cedar Point has been using a brand of lockers called GoPod for a while. These lockers offer self-service and do not require a physical key. GoPod's lockers offer a feature where guests can buy a moving all-day locker. So a guest can close a locker at one place and start a new one at a new place for no additional fee. This means that Cedar Point can only buy GoPod's lockers to support the people who have paid for the moving locker feature. What's interesting is, the first free lockers at Cedar Point, the ones at Steel Vengeance, are not from GoPod. This is because GoPod does not offer double-sided lockers. Instead, Cedar Point got these lockers from a company called V-Locker. So, the lockers had to be free, or the moving locker feature would have been incompatible with the V-Lockers. V-Locker also offers a revenue sharing service. However, Cedar Point must have not used this because the lockers are offered for free. This means that Cedar Point will pay out of pocket for lockers if they have to. Part of me wonders a theory that if GoPod did offer double-sided lockers, would Cedar Point have still made those lockers free? That way, the moving locker feature would have felt like an even better value, but luckily, we'll never know. Moving on over to Siren's Curse, their lockers are neither GoPod or V-Locker. Instead, they use a brand of lockers called DualPod. I could not find any information about DualPod or why Cedar Point decided to use yet another company for their lockers. So if you know why, then please let me know in the comments. Alright, the last free lockers in the park are at Top Thrill Jackster. Top Thrill 2, whatever. Let me just say, what a mess. When the ride opened in 2024, it was announced that nothing could be in your pockets while you ride. So, whatever. We'll do a system like Steel Vengeance, right? Most guests don't mind that system too much. Well, the second half of the announcement said that they made this decision after initial testing. So, it was too late to modify anything. And so guests are going to have to put their phones in a paid locker before the entrance of the ride. I want to note that the lockers in front of the attraction were from GoPod. This next part is speculation, but I think Cedar Point signed a contract with GoPod for their no-cost-to-you revenue-sharing service. And so, Cedar Point could not make these lockers free, even if they wanted to. So guests were forced to put their phones in a locker and be hours without it in line. Fortunately, or unfortunately, the ride was only open for about a week in 2024, and so hardly anyone was affected by this. Then, In 2025, Cedar Point added free lockers to the attraction's entrance next to the previous lockers. These lockers, I believe, are from Dual Pod, which makes sense because they're the same lockers that were being built at Siren's Curse at the same time. It's just kind of weird because you rent the lockers from a GoPod terminal, but then use a Dual Pod locker. However, what I don't understand is why these lockers were added to the entrance. This wasn't some last-minute decision that happened a year prior, and Cedar Point was already buying double-sided lockers and installing them across the park. They had the chance to make it really nice, like Steel Vengeance. As nice as it is, this is a much worse system. It annoys me because every year when they have their stockholders call, they always say that in the future, they want to improve the guest experience. It makes such a big deal about it.
And reaffirm the central thesis behind our strategy. When we invest in product quality, operational reliability, and the guest experience, consumer demand follows.
But this just seems to be a meaningless buzzword to them, because there is so many cheap changes they could make around the parks that would drastically improve the guest experience. Do you want proof? Look at this next example. Let's go over to Snake River Falls. Did you see that? This, right here. Are you kidding me? They added cubbies to Snake River Falls? What? You don't understand why that's such a big deal? Well, allow me to enlighten you. You see, Snake River Falls closed permanently in 2024. And I worked the attraction in 2023. And those cubbies were not there when I worked it. The ride was open for 30 years. And they decided to add cubbies in the last 2 months? Seriously, 2 months. I found a video on June 13th where the cubbies are not there, and then another video on June 29th where they are. The ride then closed on September 2nd. I had to tell so many guests that they couldn't leave their shoes in the station or in the bushes, and that they either had to ride with them and get wet or go with a non-rider. Alright, rant aside, I do believe this has a deeper meaning. Why would a park invest in a ride if they knew it was about to close down permanently? It makes me think that Cedar Point did not plan to close the attraction. Six Flags and Cedar Fair merged on July 1st, 2024, and they wasted no time making changes to the parks and demolishing classic attractions such as Kingda Ka in December of that year. It is evident that Six Flags Great Adventure wanted to keep Kingda Ka even if it was just for 1 more year. However, upper management looked at the price to keep the ride running and decided to make budget cuts. Snake River Falls was only open for 3 months out of the year, and even when it was open, it had low ridership. It is not surprising to see it removed. In fact, rumors about the removal date back to 2015. However, I believe that the ride was budget cut on a split-second decision. The park put out a statement that the reason for the removal was for future expansion. So let's look at that future expansion. I guess by future expansion, they mean showing off their 2 defunct rides as scenery. Now, the park will add something there eventually. They don't have anywhere else to expand. It's just obvious that the park could have kept the ride running in 2025. Those are all of my tinfoil hat theories for today. If I can't keep up with these changing policies, then I feel bad for the average guest who must be lost, and for all the employees who have to enforce these constantly changing rules. I hope the park finds its way, because in some regards, I feel like it's taken a step backwards. Let me know if you have any theories down in the comments. Thank you for watching this video. Please leave a like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.